The public has a long-held fascination with detectives. Detectives see a side of life the average person is never exposed to. In this podcast series, I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin, I'll be interviewing a whole range of people you come across as a detective, including police, bad guys and victims. I spent 34 years as a cop. For 25 of those years I was catching killers. That's what I did for a living. I was a homicide detective. I'm no longer just interviewing bad guys. Instead, I'm taking the public into the world in which I operated. The guests I selected have amazing stories from all sides of the law. The interviews are raw and honest, just like the world they inhabited. No one who steps into the world of crime comes out unchanged. Join me now while I take you into this world. This episode of I Catch Killers contains conversations that some listeners may find confronting or triggering. Discretion is advised. Welcome back to part 2 of I Catch Killers with our guest, Jason Semple, a man whose life's direction changed significantly when he found himself lying, bleeding in a gutter with a dead colleague on top of him. I get the sense that coming back from a near-fatal experience, Jason decided that he was going to put himself in the best place to protect not only himself, but others around him. As you'll find out, Jason's career in policing did not finish when he resigned from the New South Wales Police. Jason, that was in 2006.
Yeah, I've actually resigned twice.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, they must have re-employed you.
Yeah, they did.
So you resigned first up in 2006?
Yep.
And that's when you went over, and where did you go on that occasion?
That was the CPAT program over in Iraq, with the basically training the Special Police Commando Brigade over there. And
that's when you went over there as a contractor.
Yep.
Then you came back to the New South Wales Police?
Yep.
How long were you back in the cops for then?
So, give or take a little bit of time. I was basically spent 12 months out of New South Wales Police, and then did a rejoinee program. It's 2 weeks down at the academy, and I did everything right to get out to go do that.
Yeah.
So I resigned, and
you didn't burn any bridges.
No, we're trying to do leave without pay, so you could just sort of slide back in. But like I said, there's no blame on the organisation here. There was probably just, and they were a bit concerned about how many guys they would lose as well. So I came back, and I was initially coming straight back in the TOU with another ex-TOU member who was doing the rejoinees program, but he'd been off doing something else. But when it came to crunch time, it was like, hey, we don't want to make this look too attractive. That you can go do something and come back. So I spent a few months in uniform policing up at Gosford.
Right.
Which was good. It was like the first time I'd been 5 minutes from home in an employment capacity for a while. So, and
And then, so you stayed in for another 12 months and then resigned?
No, so that was basically the bulk of, because I didn't go back into the TOU, it was like, and I was waiting. There was a few other opportunities that were building with Australian Federal Police.
Yep.
Really cool opportunities, and which is with their international deployment group at the time. So basically, by the time I got back to the tactical operations unit, I literally only did 2 or 3 weeks with them, and then I was resigned again.
Okay, and that's where I talked in part 1, towards the end of part 1, about after you've finished with the New South Wales Police, that's where your life really took you to some interesting and I'd have to say dangerous places across the world. It was some of the most dangerous places in the world that you've found yourself in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what were you chasing? What was that about? Is it that what you said before is going over as a contractor, you wanted to use your skills?
Yep. It's definitely a combination of validating skills, because you're trained to a certain high level, and unless something happens, when you're, say if you took it back to TOU, there's obviously, significant things occur, but the longer you get exposed to them, they're not as significant to you, so you're looking for a little bit more operational exposure, in areas that clearly don't exist in New South Wales. There's an adventure side to it, and it's definitely validating your training, and I suppose it's just like you're wanting to go to that next level. What
took you to the Federal Police?
The Federal Police just had, I mean, I won't lie, they had a really good program set up where, we're going to get a lot of overseas experience. And I think it's what a lot of us were craving was what, significant, we're looking after significant, whether it was counter-terrorism or really significant organised crime here in Australia. But there was also an offshore capability that they had wanted to build for stability operations, whether it's Ramsey, that regional assistance mission over in Solomon Islands, or we found ourselves in Timor, Philippines, all over the place. With
so the attraction was work outside the country and being deployed overseas.
Yep.
And in joining the Federal Police, that was as a tactical police officer?
Yeah.
Did you go straight into tactical policing?
Yeah. So there was a very quick. I mean, they're very efficient in how they go about their business, the Australian Federal Police, and they sort of cut through a lot of bureaucracy to get what they need, and it's driven by some quite significant overseas requirements. So they I think initially they're looking at trying to second a lot of guys with our experience from around the country, but for what a lot of the jurisdictions didn't want to give up their talent pool, if you want to call it that. So basically then it was just a straight up offer of employment. And I think the potential for what they were doing was so attractive. It was like, it was hard to stay away. So
talk us through some of the more interesting jobs you got to carry out with the AFP.
Yeah, it literally felt like there was no limitations to what could potentially sort of be put in front of you. So I would be once the unit got stood up and we were operating, and there's a lot of experience in the teams. You could, at a moment's notice, you find yourself going from doing a task in Melbourne, and then 48 hours later you're walking through the jungle in the Solomon Islands, looking for one of their militia targets that was still floating around committing murders and crimes in the Solomon Islands.
Talk me through that, because I don't think a lot of people would realise that's the type of work that Australian Federal Police carry out.
Yeah, there's there's a lot of stuff in the background that Australian Federal Police do that goes unnoticed. Just some amazing, like every jurisdiction, but just some amazing outcomes overseas, and they don't, they don't go around sort of broadcasting. It's really it's in the background. Whether it's some of the technical things that they were doing for catching Bali bombers. Yeah, just amazing people, and you talk to those guys, and you go, man, that's just like the most incredible story of what they were doing to put that, you know better than anyone in that investigative sense how difficult it would be. From the tactical side, it's like the jungle, activities we're doing really, we really cut our teeth on it because we're, when we first started, we had experience back here doing work in our Australian bush, but it's next level when you start trying to operate in that.
Talk me through, and as long as we're not breaching any confidentiality clauses, an operation that you did in the jungles.
They could be as simple as just deploying out at a certain point that we'd identified, at a certain point in the evening, like 10, 11, once it's, into that sort of hour where everyone's gone quiet, especially over there, and doing like close target reconnaissance on areas, and then pull out at 4 o'clock in the morning, and everything's covert, so all your covert activities, obviously I wouldn't sort of divulge on how we went about that, but there's some there's a lot of effort goes into doing things to make it so that no one knows what you're doing.
So you're basically creeping into the jungle in your camouflage gear and every other bit of equipment that you need to carry
under
out that.
NVG,
and then looking for targets, or
so sometimes it's like you would do the CTR purely to get a really good understanding of the lay of the land, so that when if there'd been some information that someone had been there previously, and we'd missed that opportunity, so let's get in there and understand it. So if there's more information come back that they're back there, we know exactly how to get in there really quickly, swiftly, and get the result.
Okay, so a reconnaissance, covert reconnaissance.
And it was like, we just, I think when we first started off, and it reflected in our training, especially as snipers, we really had this keyhole mentality. When I say that, it's like, you secrete yourself somewhere, and literally trained so that a trained observer can't see you. But when you apply that real strict methodology to like people moving around, it sort of pushes you down the track where you're going to fail, because you actually need to be a little bit more. You need to understand and use the skills, but in a lot more aggressive manner. So yeah, I wouldn't say we were perfect straight off the bat. There's a lot of learning experiences in it. I think that was the bit I enjoyed the most.
I've heard military guys talk about like jungle warfare or operating in the jungle, how uncomfortable it is.
Yes.
Give us a sense of what you're dealing with there.
I reckon it's my favourite place to be at the same time as my least favourite place to be, if that makes any sense. It's like,
doesn't really, but I'm sure you'll explain.
So the things I enjoy about it is like once you're in there, especially once you've broke track and you're operating in a small team, you're literally, if you crouch down, you disappear. So there's a sense of I know it's like a safety blanket. You can operate and it literally disappear. It's like so I mean, from that environmental point of view, and I won't fluff it up. Like we were running night vision gear, that's worth $40,000 each guy. Yeah. Up against people that haven't got night vision. So it really, at night time, you really do own your space.
You had a tactical advantage.
And then, I think the biggest drama in the jungle is when during the day, you go to ground and lie up, and it's just, you literally just feel like you're dying slowly, drowning in humidity, and it's really, really getting bitten by things. And
that's when you're trying to sleep.
Yeah, it's like, it's horrifying at times.
So you'd go in there for a day or a couple of days, or
I think we were sort of you're limited to how you can access water is the biggest issue. So and if you're going to carry enough water to sort of drink and hydrate yourself properly, you're talking if you've got 40 litres of water to last a week. It's 40 kilos that you've got to pump around.
Lot of weight.
We used to do, there's other mechanisms that we used to do to access water and food. But, over there we sort of limited it to about 5 to 7 days would be the maximum, because it's just, if it was covert. Overt, you can obviously sustain yourself for a lot more. But yeah, we did all sorts of types of insertion. It was really, I know we just got really good at it, I suppose. And I think we took more risks. When I say professional risks, and developed the ability to be a lot more aggressive with what we were doing and speed up some of our outcomes. So it was really easily my favorite period, like in terms of getting some operational skills.
Yeah. Did you have to check yourself sometimes, thinking, I walked into the gates at Goulburn Police Academy for New South Wales Police, and here I am, and that skill set and my life path, and here I am laying in the jungle keeping observations of a village in the Solomon Islands?
Oh, absolutely. I could think of at least 50 times, because I like to be quite, I'm not like I was when I was in my 20s. You're a lot more mindful as you get older and appreciate and you're grateful for the people you get to work with, and then also the experiences and the trust and the, I look at everything over there, even the bad stuff that I didn't necessarily enjoy, and just I'm so grateful for that exposures. Yeah.
And Timor, what was the role that you had over in Timor?
The attempted assassination on Ramos Horta. So the Australian government sort of spun up quickly. They had a defence presence over there, and the AFP, it was highly publicised, so it's easy to talk about. But we sort of deployed over there for about 3 months. It was a 10 to 12 week deployment. So I know that was a good experience as well. Completely different environment to Solomon Islands, but they all share some similarities. Yep.
And the type of role you were carrying out there?
It's stability. So it's like we were a presence. We had a pretty significant public order response capability, as well as the more tactical side of things. So that was a really good deployment as well.
You mentioned during the break Tony Mockbell.
Oh yeah.
Was that? Do you want to explain your involvement in?
And that comes back to like the diversity of work. You know, it was like, I think I'd just come off doing some, just a bit of range time with my sniper team, and it was like one of the commanders at the time, he pulled me in, and it was like, because it was very hush-hush at the time. They're trying to obviously keep it from the media.
Yeah.
Because, he...
And just if I could explain, Tony Mockbell was on the run, and probably one of Australia's most wanted people, tied up with gangland activity down in Victoria. And he had escaped the country. It's fairly infamous type of personality. He's played out on the TV shows, and fairly high profile. And your role that we're talking about is bringing him back into the country.
Yeah, so extradite him back.
Where had he been captured?
Greece.
Okay.
So it was like, come in, and it's literally, you got a suit at home, and of course, so it's like, go pack your bags, don't tell anyone where you're going. Not that it's like some secret squirrel thing. It was just more, once again, AFP, people don't need to know. And it obviously, we needed to get there and get him before,
anyone got tipped off, or...
I mean, I think we were in the air on the way over, and someone from Victoria had already, spoken to someone to us, like, it was, that gig was up. But, it was funny because the response, had a few guys from Vic Sog in there with us as well, but we're all really big guys, and I think there was a message in it too, so when we were on this private jet going over and bringing him back, it was, there wouldn't be any...
making a statement.
So don't muck around, but it was like, I'm not kidding, the guy was as hard as a skin on cream custard, it was like this little meek, I mean, I'm sure he's had his criminal activities in his past, but it was like physically, please just sit there and...
What are we all doing?
Yeah. But it's that was
that would have been an interesting one, just because it was such a high profile one, and everyone in the country was wondering where he'd got to.
Yeah.
So little adventures like that. So for a role in policing, like, I wish I could wind the clock back. That sounds like fascinating a career, like diversity of different experiences that you had. Anywhere else that took you, or?
Obviously did a deployment with the feds into Afghanistan as well.
Yeah, and what was your role there?
I mean, it was pretty, in the background sort of role. You'd never take the role we were playing over there was to support, the ADF in any which way we could.
Yep.
They're doing all the hard yards. They're doing all the tip of the spear. As much as I'd love to have, done more. Yeah. There's areas of everyone's got their role to play, right? So, I was happy just to be with people I knew, and it was like, we just advised in on some areas that might be helpful for, and it comes down into your knowledge would have been quite pertinent as well, because it's how to exploit an area once you have, so sensitive site exploitation. So how do you search it? How do you find everything? What's of importance, from an evidentiary point of view? Because I had the tactical background, I spent a bit of time with the partnered Afghans, with our special forces, just helping out where I could to alleviate so they could go do stuff, So more of some of the mundane training, when I say mundane, comparative to being out kinetically operational, whether it was, doing some breaching training with them or, whatever it was, within there was guidelines. It was a really, really exceptional experience. It's been one of those things where, I was always grateful to the Australian Defence Force, and a lot of my friends that I've known for over the years were deployed there at the time. So, it was just fantastic. And
again, that's another environment that you're operating in, completely foreign to Solomon Islands and Timor. Did it impact on your personal life, travelling like that?
Yeah.
What stage were you at in your personal life? Were you married? You had kids, or?
Yeah, I was married at that time, and it definitely would impact on if you're away for substantial times, but you got a caveat as well. Like if I was away for 2 months, I was generally home for a month or maybe even more
to balance it.
So being home if you're home for 5 weeks, going and taking the kids to school every single day and doing every single thing with them, you catch up on a lot of dads that are at home all the time actually aren't at home very much at all.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
You're playing more a significant role in the time.
So you're much more
home.
invested when you realise, people understand what it's like when you're not there. So you sort of appreciate each other. But it has its drawbacks. I'm very happily married in my second marriage to just a perfect individual, and I think some of that activities made me appreciate what I need to do in a relationship as well as just
It is a situation, whether it's age experience or life experience, that you do learn. And I would imagine in an environment like that, because I find that when I'm at the sharp end of policing in my area at homicide, if you're at the murder scene or you're locking up someone, it was hard to come home because your body, whether it's adrenaline or whatever it is, but something's going on. You're wired, you're amped up.
Yeah.
When you came back from deployments like that, could you fit into not just your home life, but fit into the normal, mundane civilian life?
It's a really good question, and it's like it was very strange because it was, if you look at the way military operate, a lot of training, so they're very well prepared, operational deployment, and then they should come back from decompression, and they decompress a little bit prior to coming back. I think that sort of eroded a little bit, and we can see some of the results of it now, but because the guys were sort of cycling, but for us, it was like, I remember doing, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was on a task in the Solomon Islands in the middle of the jungle in that type of environment, sort of thing. And then literally 36 hours later, I was wearing a pair of jeans and doing a covert sort of role in Melbourne. Yeah. And then bunching, like literally going from Melbourne to somewhere else and then back to, that jungle environment. You go, and then in between, spending a couple of nights at home, and you go, well, it's quite, you're sitting there, and sometimes it would look like you're probably detached, I suppose, in your home. I mean, I was pretty mindful about where I was at any one time. Yeah. And you got really good at being present where you were, but it's still, you had to, it was quite tricky at times.
Look, I think it's anyone, realistically, that's hard to sort of adjust to those environments and expect you to it not have an impact. But you seem to have a sort of deep understanding of who you are at this point in time. Yeah. I would imagine you've evolved from who you were at that point in time, but looking back at it. So how long were you in the Federal Police for?
I joined in 2007, and I resigned from that role in 2013. So it was and even though it's like 6 years, pretty much, it was the intensity and the volume that was in that 6 years is just amazing. Look back, it's like I think I was talking to you before. Yeah. It's like a movie that you participate in, but you actually, there's so many things that occurred in that period. It was like I'm truly grateful for it.
Yeah, and the difference between New South Wales and the Federal Police, obviously the tasks and overseas, are the dynamics of the police the same in Federal Police as they are in New South Wales Police, like from an organisational point of view?
Oh yeah, there's definitely differences between the two, and because they've got different focuses. I think there's aspects of both that are very similar. Yep. And if you break down and compartmentalise, some of the capabilities of, obviously they'd all sort of address similarities, but their organisational focus and capabilities, I suppose even funding, everything's different. So I wouldn't compare them it's very hard to compare them, and there was certain coming from New South Wales into AFP. The guys that had been true AFP the whole time. I suppose there was a little bit of teething there, and it's the same the other way, right? So New South Wales Police, there was some historical sort of, and it's just those organisations sort of posturing against each other, sort of.
Is it fair to say, and this is the sense that I had with the Federal Police, no one really knew what they were doing, and we're talking a long time ago. But in recent times, with terrorism and different things, there seems to be a newfound respect for Federal Police. Is that
absolutely.
They've been deployed more, because that was a standard thing that you'd hear from the New South Wales perspective, and I'm sure Federal Police would say the same thing back about us in certain regards. But what are they actually doing?
Yeah.
But now I get the sense, coming from a policing background, that they've been heavily deployed all over the place.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I never participated. You know, I was never exposed to any investigators or any real AFP centric activity. Most of my New South Wales career, you know, like a lot of some other. So I really can't comment. The guys that I did get exposed to were doing my role, and they were the same sort of dude. So
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the background there. You know, no organisation is perfect, but there's definitely a lot going on there that is probably just not visible.
Yeah.
For varying reasons. So yeah, like I'm equally grateful with New South Wales and AFP for different reasons.
Yeah.
And completely different exposures and so it's.
What made you leave the federal police? Like that lifestyle that and I can see how animated you become just talking about it.
Yeah.
And I get excited about thinking that would be an interesting career. What prompted you to decide to leave the AFP?
I had a accident overseas in rappelling from a helicopter and broke my leg pretty badly and my back. I got back to work within about 6 months from that injury.
You've just dropped that you had an accident where you broke your leg and broke your back propelling from a helicopter.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, at the end of the day, we were trying to do we were going to do an insertion into the jungle and save ourselves a bit of heartache by stomping in and rappel through the canopy.
Right.
And then if we haven't done a skill set for a little while, let's go out and drill it, you know.
Yeah.
So, and it's one of those things, when you're doing something a fair bit, the complacency comes in it.
Yeah.
So, I think I was looking at it more as a bit of an incumbence it's like, oh man, do we really need to go do 7? We'll do 7 rappels and then everyone's back. It makes sense, but it's like the tempo of what we were doing was sort of, anyway, so I went and did that. And then literally the last deployment out of the helo, did everything, you know, textbook.
Yeah.
On the last one, it was like, we just had this abnormally, access to some abnormally long ropes. So
Yeah.
basically did a
Because you've got to go through the canopy of the jungle. So
but even the operation ones, you're really only doing 60 feet, you know, sort of thing. So it's nothing too.
And you're not harnessed to the rope. You're sliding down the rope. Or?
You're harnessed to it, but if you take your hands off it, you're dropping at the speed of which the descender allows you to go through it. You know. Anyway, I think we had like about 300 feet of rope, so it was a lot of. And it was we rappelled. And it was just one of those moments where I think the helo was sort of coming in towards the ground at the same time. So there was a few things that added up. And then when I braked, you know, so on the rope, there's a certain amount of flex in it.
Yeah.
And I just come in real hard.
Right.
You know, if you look at the video, there was actually some video footage of it, and it looks pretty innate. But then, you know, I was looking down, my legs facing back towards me and dislocated my ankle at the same time, and I'm still attached to this helicopter that's still moving and hovering, so I've got to come off that, you know. And it was like just one of those moments where, damn it, you know. That's
so with that, and I think it's interesting because we talked about after you had been stabbed and how you kept yourself fit and that. The fitness would have come into play in an injury like that, and you broke your back. So what was that at? Yeah,
it's just like the L4, L5, you know, and most people have got some issues there at our age anyway, but it just cracked those discs as well. I actually didn't pick up on that for quite some time because the pain and the issues with my leg dominated.
So this happened in the Solomon Islands?
Yep.
Did it? So how did you get medevaced out of there?
That's a story in itself. I had to stay there for a couple of days because to try and get the actual injury to sort of stabilise a bit as well. I got medevaced back to Australia, back to Brizzy.
Yep.
And then I had to spend another 3 or 4 days because of that transit had caused issues, and so I was another week in hospital there with surgery and that in Brizzy, and it was a bit of a arduous climb back into. But at the end of the day, I actually lost about 25% of the dorsiflexion in that leg, in that ankle. So and it's something that
you carry with it to this day.
Yeah.
So, sorry I interrupted because I just wanted to explore the rappelling out of a helicopter and breaking your leg and back, but we've explored that. But we were talking about why you left the Federal Police.
Yep, so got back to the fitness levels required and then back on teams, and then, the unit, the AFP had set our unit up in Brisbane, and it was like, we're part of work. Where you live is obviously a big part of it, and I was centralising it back in Canberra, and that really wasn't something that a lot of us were really keen on doing at the time. So it makes you start looking outward, and at the exact same time there was a opportunity over in the United Arab Emirates for guys with particular skill sets to go in there and assist with their training. It was really lucrative, awesome, amazing conditions. So it was like, well, that's hard.
So how you apply for that and you sign a contract, do you?
So once again, it's a US military contracting group that is basically manpowering direct to the UAE military or the Presidential Guard in that
okay,
aspect.
so just so I understand it, so the US military, it's...
No, it's a standalone private company.
Company.
They're tapped into all their ex-military operators and...
Okay, and then you're engaged through them to work with the UAE.
Yeah, and they had a bit of a requirement for guys from police special operations because we have a lot of experience doing counter assault team movements. So I can't remember how many presidents we looked after coming out to Australia, or all those tactical movements that happen here in Australia. The police special operations
through the Olympics and other APEC and
so they want to tap into our experience and our training methodologies and and transfer it into their their military is doing a few roles over there that traditionally our police would do over here.
Right.
So that's where the transition is, in skill sets. And
where were you based?
I was living in Abu Dhabi, and there was a couple of bases, which I won't name, around, that I worked at.
And was your role, is it training capacity, or were you also doing CPP work?
It was all training, mentoring. So it was full skills transfer of everything we knew over to those guys. And it was like it was a really amazing opportunity because the guys I was working with, my team was made up of, if you want to validate your skills against people, that was the place to go and do it. It's like
because of the cross section of people coming in.
Literally the perfect storm of experienced people in one place, all feeding off each other. So you name the special operations organisation, they're there. They've got guys from anything you can think of. And we're working day to day with each other. So it was good to put your skills up against guys from all around the world. But it was done well. There was no egos. It was very much.
So it was a free exchange of skill sets.
Yeah, I mean, and there's always, you get
you'll get dickheads anyway.
You get some alpha males in there, but people were very, very carefully chosen for their jobs over there. It was like you could have the operational experience, but they unless you were vetted by and vouched for by some people, because obviously it's a unique part of the world, and there's a lot of respect required and
degree of diplomacy.
Oh, massive, yeah. And no matter what's coming out of your mouth, there's always like a much more strategic implication every time you spoke.
And they're the people that you were training with. How did you find the group that you were training? Were they receptive to outsiders coming in and upskilling them?
Yeah. It's I've got some amazing friends over there in UAE. They're just, it's like anywhere. You got some guys who probably take offence to the fact there's people that are externally come into your organisation to teach you
what you're saying you're the best at in your own organisation.
Yeah, but to be honest, if you reverse that, we were the first. The sniper team I I was in with the AFP, we were the first to put our hand up and say if we didn't know how to do something, and we identified someone that did know how to do it, we'd be like all over them like a rash. Hey, can you come in? And if you have an ego that you, oh no, we can do that, we're good to go, you'll be forever
limiting.
Yeah, you'll limit yourself and you'll be mediocre. But the guys that are actually able to say, oh no, can you come and show us? That's cool. You know, like that's where they're the guys that end up with all the skills and have a much more enjoyable time, not having this bravado bullshit sort of front that's, you know, is a bit fraudulent.
How long were you there for?
Just a bit under 5 years, actually.
All right, so that was a significant time. Did you manage to keep a relationship going in that period of time? Did you spend time back in Australia, or you?
No, well, that was fully residential. So it's like take your family, everything. So it's everything from here goes over there. So it's like it was a good experience for the kids as well.
It would have been a great experience.
Yeah, they did a lot of travel, you know, for where it's located globally. And you're pretty much your salary allowed you to do a lot of travel. And then they're at these international schools. You know, there was a different nationality friend coming home all the time. Some couldn't even speak English. You know, so it was quite funny.
It's a good way to give your kids a worldly experience and look outside their own environment.
Yep.
So, that would have been an interesting time of things.
Yeah, it truly was.
And from there, so what are we talking now? I just want to keep, because you've had your time in the New South Wales Police, then your time in the Federal Police, and then 5 years here. Where did you head to from there?
From there, you know, I think everything has its, you know, like a use by. Well, that's probably not the best way to put it. There was a few forces that were at play that sort of drove me back to Australia. One of which was, you know, moving on out of the relationship I was in at the time, marriage. So I needed to come back to Australia, and then, I suppose I had a little bit of time up my sleeve, and just, you know, I loved being back in Australia. I loved being able to just, you know, walk around with a pair of boardies and no shirt on, as opposed to being over in a, you know, Middle Eastern country. It's not as easy to do, but, and then, you know, obviously a lot of the exposures that I had over the years with a few organisations that actually supply equipment and everything in there, one of which was Australian Defence Apparel, and a very strong relationship with their senior management. And, you know, there was a lot, they were obviously supplying us with the gear, and we were supplying information on how it performed, and there was a lot of relationship over a long time. And
the importance as a tactical type person, the importance of good equipment, like it's critical to you, isn't it?
And it's changed a lot. You know, in the last 20 years of wearing the gear, man, it's like, you know, you've got body armour now that the whole body armour system weighs about 2 kilos, but you know what it's like when you pull one out of your police car. It was 40 kilos. You know, it was
ridiculous.
And you didn't want to put it on because you've got about 10 minutes before you sort of. And
it limited to how quickly you could move. It was literally, it was
horrifying. So and they're a great company.
The company was Le Gear.
So LE Gear is I'm a division manager for them, and they're part of that greater Australian Defence Apparel. As a holistic, you know, company. And just, you know, for me, coming out of you know, a service, it was like they just had a real tribe thing going on there as well. So, you know, that they're inclusive. It was real. It was just a good fit to go to. I really liked the people that were managing the company, and
because it's interesting you say that, and you use the word tribe, because I've been speaking to some ex-military guys. They're set up a group called Swiss 8, and they're looking at helping ex-combat veterans and all that. And I read an article about the work that they were doing, Swiss 8 group, and part of it was that they were looking at what happens to people when they come out of the military, because they've lost purpose, they've lost direction. The skill set that they had in the military was, it was recognised bravery, courage, everything else that goes with, working in that field. And then when they leave the military, those skill sets aren't recognised, and I think that it resonated with me, because what happened with me when I left the police so suddenly, I had the shits about how it happened, and I was down, but what they were talking about really resonated in that you'd lost your tribe.
Yeah.
Like I was used to going in and talking cop talk every day to other like-minded people, and what you talk about there. So you've left an environment, whether it be policing and it's paramilitary or whatever environment. And when you left, did it feel funny, like stepping away from that, having people that you literally, you put in your life in their hands, and you've got to depend on each other and the skill sets that you're there?
Yeah, and there are a lot of unique individuals, but absolutely, I think to the day you die, it's imprinted in your DNA now, and you'll always miss aspects of it. At the same time, if I went back there now, I'd probably be going, what am I doing? It's like, because you'll always pine for the things that were that you really enjoyed, and forget about some of the things that were a bit mundane. But it's it's very much a case. You need to identify aspects of what you really enjoyed back in those units or investigations, whatever your role was. One thing I've spoken to a few military groups that have invited me up to, talk about transition and also some of the resilience from being stabbed and what that was like. And the one thing I say to them is like, can I just ask you one question? Like, please don't ever refer to people that weren't in the military as civilians. Yeah. Because, that's what you are when you're not walking around. If you're not walking around in your uniform with a weapon, you're a civilian. You're actually... if you're at Woolworths, you're more civilian than I was when I was in the police, because if something happened in there, I would have to, my role turns back on again.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But, the cops never sort of go down that line of, and as soon as you start, referring to people, and you're grouping them, and then you start alienating yourself, even if it's not in a purposefully negative way. Yeah. So it's always, for me, it's always like, I went out of my way, because there was a lot of arrogance in my field and ego, and I as time went on, and there was a lot of guys identified, and it's like become a lot more mindful, and like I didn't like that side of some of the guys. I preferred I love the precision, I love the outcomes, and I love the professionalism of the guys, and it was amazing. But like, leave your ego and leave that type of negativity at the door. Yeah. So I would spend heaps of time with our logistics people. Hey boys, come in here and have a coffee, and because at the end of the day, you never know what someone else has done. They're sitting in that role, and I think that helped me as well. Yeah, because it's just like, I was so used to going and chilling out with people, when I actually gravitated away. It's like a nice break from the
So it's my interpretation of what you're saying there. The type of work that you're doing, even if it was at the sharp end, you never got ahead of yourself. In that,
it doesn't make you better than someone, does it?
No, well, it's just like 100%.
You've got an urge to do a certain role, but like I guarantee you, there's people haven't had the same exposure or the opportunity to be in that position you're in. There's heaps of people who could do it. It's So you just I'm really mindful of that. Not thinking you're better than someone, because really, it doesn't matter what you do. Everyone's got a thing, and you look up someone, dude, that person might be an amazing individual, but at the end of the day, they're still just a guy, right? That's
Do you think the experiences that you've had during your career, and I reference back to one of the type of experience that no one wants to go through when you were stabbed and you lost your mate Peter, and the same thing. Do you think that's had a change your outlook on life, or more philosophical approach to things?
Oh, I think that contributed, and it's just as same with yourself, same with anyone that goes through their life travel. Yeah, everything. If you stop to look and appreciate where you are, you'll. It's accumulative. That mindfulness. It's definitely. It's my. I wish I could go back and give myself advice when I was in my 20s and just go, man, just stop and really take time to appreciate where you are. When you're going 100 miles an hour, you need to, that mindfulness is really important for your resilience. Yeah. Because you know where you are at any one point in time.
Well, you look back at yourself, and whether it's an easy reference point, because we remember the day we walk out of the police academy, how ignorant you were on things, and
just no idea.
it scares me. It scares me when I think, Jesus, they let me out of the academy and they gave me authority and a gun and everything else, and I just didn't fully understand what the world was about at that point in time. I thought I did, and that's probably more dangerous than not. I look at policing now, and I feel sorry for young police in the type of scrutiny that they get. What's your thoughts on policing in this day and age?
Yes, it seems like their role and the requirements on them have just like exponentially just evolved into add COVID to it. It's just amazing from what police would have been doing 30, 40 years ago. Yeah, and then I suppose limitations of technology as well. But fast forward to now, there's this massive expectation on them to have so many areas covered and really well, and then don't sort of stuff it up once, and then, like you said, scrutiny-wise, it's like you couldn't walk out of anywhere, anytime, without having a camera on you.
Yeah.
And it seems like, unfortunately, our society is more prone to want to record police when they're having a struggle than help them. You know what I mean? It's like
it's a funny thing, isn't it? When I don't know my attitude before I was in the police, but certainly outside the police. But if I saw someone in trouble, wrestling a police officer in trouble, you'd be looking at help.
Yeah.
And, well, yeah, for that matter, anyone rather than recording it. But social media seems to be the way of things these days. I find it really, and it worries me for the young police in that I know there's pressure when you come out on the street. You've got that authority. You've got to make decisions that you make on the split second, and they're going to be scrutinised in the court with highly paid solicitors or barristers trying to make you look stupid. But also the fact that it's so public these days.
Yeah.
If you made a mistake when I first joined the police, and even in the times when you're in the police, it wasn't a public hanging event. But now the police and the skill set they got to have. It's not you don't have to be 6 foot and carry a baton and get round there, but you've got to do that at certain times.
Yeah.
And then they've got to have their computer skills, and they've got to have every other skill set that's needed, and they've got to be politically correct, and it's just a hard environment.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm sure police will rise to the occasion. Yeah. Young police will rise to the occasion. But is it something that if you could advise, you've got children, is it something that you'd be happy for your kids, or if someone said to you, would you join the police, what would you be your words?
Yeah, well, even my eldest is, he's not too far away from, that being a actual potential thing to occur. So it's like, I'd encourage anyone to do it. But the only thing is, I would be in his ear and try to set him up mentally for success too. And go in there with and have your goals and then but have these strategies in the back of your mind on how to maintain yourself the whole way through. And don't be scared to sort of reach out to your buddies, and a whole heap of strategies on how to protect yourself in that environment as well. And as much as there's a lot of scrutiny on police now, if you know what you're doing and you're confident, you're like, you'll get your job done, and you'll be sweet. So, I'd recommend it. Still, it'd be definitely completely and utterly different to the experiences that you and I've had.
Yes.
And that's just part of evolution. But I'm sure it's got its own silver linings these days. I've
always thought, and in people I'm speaking to here, and there's a common theme that a lot of the people that I get on the podcast that have been police, and what strikes me about it, because they're people that I'm genuinely interested in their stories, and that the majority of people, or I'd probably say all the people that have been police officers that have appeared on this, I think they would be successful in or out of the police. And I think I wouldn't encourage someone to be a police officer if that's all they could do. Yeah. If it was something they wanted to do, yes, but not to be defined just by being a police officer.
You've got to have a passion for it, don't you?
Yeah. You've got to have that passion for it, but you've also got to understand that it's part of life that you can move on from. Because you mentioned transition, and that seems to be, and I'm not sure if it's just because of my stage of my career and the people I'm hanging around with now, or I'm looking at it more closely because of what's happened to me. Transition, it's such a big thing, because I've seen too many mates, men and women, leave the police and they look back in the police with the highlight of their lives, and they're struggling outside of the police. What's your thoughts on that and on the basis of transition?
Well, I think you definitely, if you need to be looking through the front windscreen, not in a rear vision mirror, right? Because if you're looking in a rear vision mirror, you're only going to veer off course, and that old analogy. But so for me, it's like, appreciate everything all the benefits and all your experiences from that. But does that really define who you are now? It's like who you are now, and what your goals are from that point forward is who you are. It's like today is, who Jason Semple is, and who knows what I'll be doing, in the next few years. It's like, so I think you really need to, if you're looking backwards all the time and comparative, then you're probably never going to be happy. But that's the same with anything, isn't it?
It's true. It's true.
So it's like, and then cash in on what you're good at. If you when I was, better than anyone, you go from talking to just Joe Blow to talking to like a politician, or you talk to every single level of society, and you have to do it at the same, have a bit of mouse there. So like that's a communication skill that is honed. The way you can perceive other people's behaviour. So if you end up in a management role, it's like you can sort of.
It's interesting that you say that communicating on all levels, because that is a skill set that policing brings, and I've done close personal protection as well as you have, where you're talking to heads of state, you're talking to presidents, and you're literally hanging out with the Prime Minister or whatever, and you've got to be able to communicate. And it's quite interesting in observing heads of state, how they go about their business. And I've looked after prime ministers and gone on walks with them, and it's quite interesting looking at the way they go about their business.
Yep.
Going from, and I'd describe your life of full of adventure, adversity at times, but it's been an exciting life. You've been at the forefront of taking on bad guys, and that's basically when you're a tactical police officer. You get brought in when the shit hits the fan, and you've got to deal with stuff. Has it changed your view on society?
I suppose it opens your eyes up to what's around you. So I'd rather have my eyes open than be blissfully unaware of what's around. I mean, I think it definitely, law enforcement definitely has that capacity to give you a jaded look on society, because you see so much, or you're responding to so much negativity. But it sort of balances out with some just amazing people that you meet, and I mean, a lot of it's in around trauma. But you still see amazing behaviour in there as well. I think, I'm not a big fan of society at the moment on a whole. Anyway, I think it's just the judgmental, the online commentary where just people just fire off and have opinions on everything when they're not even they really aren't justified in having an opinion on something. I think a lot of people just need to stop and pull back. So, and reserve your opinion, because hey, it's like, so
Because before your opinion would be at whoever you're sitting around the table with. That was how far it'd go. But now on social media, it can go across everywhere, and it's there forever. Yep,
absolutely.
But okay, so you can still see the good in society. It's not like you walk out and you see threat everywhere, or
no. I still spot activities.
You can spot a crook,
everyone. But like the normal people can as well. But I'm not walking around on eggshells or anything out there. It's like
the work that you've done, you've gone from tactical and operational policing and military to working in a commercial environment.
Yep.
Can you find the stimulation in as a business, working in a business? And
absolutely.
What's your role now? You're general manager.
Yeah. So it's reasonably complex as well, because I look after a team which involves retail. So there's bricks and mortar stores.
Yeah.
There's a large online component to it, and then there's a huge government interaction, and then there's separate to that, we're a division of a large organisation, being Australian Defence Apparel. But The people that I'm around in their areas, I see the same. I see like my CEO, he's and senior management there. Man, it's like they're proper leaders, right?
Yeah.
I can see in some of the other organisations, I go, that guy's going to struggle.
Yeah.
In mine, that's why I work there, and
Yeah.
it's like I just see this. This retention and leadership and how they organise people, and so there's obviously and that our organisation does have a few ex-military personnel in it as well, and police. But you can see how you can sort of share some of the I call it laser beam activities, where they just you look at them and go, man, that's like next level.
It's interesting. I can see how you're talking and the way that you're talking about it is it's providing you stimulation.
Yeah.
It's not like, because what worried me going from policing, I'm sure in the type of stuff you've done, you'd be thinking, where am I going to get this stimulation from?
Yeah.
And how am I going to move forward from up there with all the adrenaline rushing in and the excitement of doing an operation, and when it comes off successfully, and the fear of failure and every other emotion that goes through. But you find that in the business world.
Yeah, I mean, and it's different.
Yeah.
But the challenges are still there, and you try to meet they're really highly professional outcomes, and there's no room for error. And whether it's tenders into government organisations or just dealing with an individual. There's still correlation there.
You got any regrets about your the work that you've done, or can you see your life at those sliding door moments where, obviously I'm not talking the incident that occurred at Glebe, but any sliding door moments with your career choices that looking back?
No, there's some things we all want to go back and go, I wish I'd, but nothing on the grand scale. I'm just like completely, every day I'll talk to someone sitting around, and if you're with the right group of people and telling a few stories, and you just go, man, we're so lucky because you need the bad in there to make the good be what it is, and you need the bad to give you the exposures to develop your resilience, and you will never have any personal development without some sort of adversity. That's so I suppose looking back, that's what you always chased.
Yeah,
it was adversity.
Yeah,
in some format.
True.
And then I look back, and we were talking before, and it's just these moments where just I'll be sitting in an office. I was giving you one example, and the president of a certain company turns to you and asks you a question, and you just go, man, how did I go from walking into the academy, and here I am in this African country, and
we're talking about the president of an African country.
Yeah, and he's like going, so what are we going to do? And I was like, I might defer you to the guy sitting next to me, but and I just you have these moments where you just go, wow, how did you and able to contribute into some of those programs. I know, and those guys from all around the world still call, some of my WhatsApps probably look pretty bad actually.
Yeah.
ASIO or something, they go, what's this?
Yeah.
And they'd ring me, and they'd be surrounding some joint and saying, oh, Jason, how are you going? And it's like 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I can hear gunfire in the background. I go, dude, what are you doing? And he's going, oh no, we've got the hotel surrounded, and there's some terrorists in there. And I go, right, I will go concentrate on what you're doing and call me later. And he's like, oh, and some of my anecdotal stuff I used to throw at them all the time. So we referred to each other as Keith. So he goes, settle down, Keith, or using some of my vernacular against me. And I'm like, oh, you're serious, are you? You just said that. And then he's like, how are the kids? And I go, listen, just call me when you're done, and so go to sleep, and you wake up and there's like 45 images come through on your WhatsApp and going of everything that's occurred. And you're going, please don't send me those photos. But these are guys that are they listen to everything that came out of your mouth, saw the value in it, because they were going back to somewhere. If they didn't employ what you were teaching them, whether it was just a straight up, I had to aim and shoot, or all these other tactics, right? They would die, and some of them did, And there was a few times where if someone's in the back of the room going, not paying attention, you go, mate, you're going to be the first dude on your honor board when you get home.
If you're not,
because you're not paying attention. It was like you're only one layer removed from that exposure they're going through. So it was this. I just thought it was the most amazing opportunity to be able to contribute back to people where I knew it was saving their life and changing the way their environment went about. So there's a lot of things, probably it's not easy to talk about on this platform, but there's a lot of people doing a lot of really cool stuff around the globe and coming from our background, and it's I tip my hat to them all, the ones that can't really voice it. So it's
Well, look, I found it fascinating what we've been talking about and the type of things that you've seen and done, and I find inspiration in what you're saying, in that this is how you can live your life, and this is what the world's got to offer if you want to make a go at it.
Yeah.
You've settled in your business, and I'm going to refer to something else that you wrote, and I really do like your writing. Not that I'm a great expert on writing, but I've been thrown into a world where I'm trying to bring my writing skills up, and I'm just going to read something else out that was something that you read, and it's probably a good way to sort of getting towards the end of the podcast. The road I have travelled has been one I would not trade for any other. I've met some of the finest men and women in policing and military circles, as well as certain other agencies closely aligned, men and women who decided their calling was to protect their countrymen, both domestically and abroad. Brave men and women, some of whom paid the ultimate price for their life choice. That passage there, just that paragraph there, that seems to encapsulate what we've talked about for the last couple of hours.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I'd like to thank you for your service as a police officer, but all the other work that you've done outside of that, because we need people like you to not only, you're not just protecting yourself, but to protect other people, and it permeates by the people that you've trained. So thank you very much for coming on to I Catch Killers. I think it's been extraordinary. It's good to see you. Like the first time we met.
I know. Sorry to disappoint you with your dying declaration.
Well, I just thought, I'll get to the bottom of this, and then you survived. I didn't even need to turn up. But I'm sure, however long ago that was, we didn't expect our life's paths to go so diverse and then cross here again. But
it is incredible.
Yeah, but full credit to you, because I've seen a lot of people in situations like that, and you can choose the way you're going to live your life after a life-threatening situation like that. And the other thing that comes across in speaking to you, I'm not finding any anger or bitterness. And I often wonder about that, because a lot of people that I've spoken to and met with over the years, when they do have those life-threatening situations, it's almost zen-like in the way they approach their life after it. So,
you know, one thing on that, I know you're finishing up, but it's like... people would say to me, especially straight after that stabbing, poor you, sort of cotton wooling, that must be the most horrible thing. And I used to say to people, it's like, there's farmers out there that roll their tractors, lose a leg. This is after they've gone through 3 droughts, 2 floods, and I always used to go like, this has happened to me. And look at the amazing amount of support I had. I actually felt guilty. And then there's all sorts of people around that these horrifying things happen to them, and no one really gives a rat's ass about it. But they have to, pick themselves up, and I reckon they're the true resilient heroes in amongst our community that aren't up on a pedestal. You know what I mean? They're just
going day to day.
And you know what I mean? So it's like, it's all relative, isn't it?
It is relative, and just what you've said there, you've displayed your humanity and your empathy. So, Jason, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed the chat. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
Next week on I Catch Killers, we're going to speak to someone who was the most wanted person in the country following an audacious prison escape. He was an armed robber, escapee, long-serving prisoner in some of the country's toughest jails. He also wrote poetry and plays, and is an award-winning journalist. If I came across him when I was working and he was working, there is a good chance guns would be drawn and someone may have been shot. Make sure you catch up next week for I Catch Killers.